Hey everybody, I have a video here for you today, and I've had more than a few questions pop up over the past month on the same subject matter, and I've not made a video about this. I may have mentioned this just in passing, but this is a video on the Turin Kings list, and people have asked, doesn't this prove that Egyptian history, or what we know today as Egypt, goes back, the history of that area goes back at least 30,000 years? And that's a very good question that has been reported by some people. And I just thought I would give my honest opinion of the Turin Kings list today, and that's what you will always get from me, is my honest opinion on something, whether the story is not quite as exciting or a lot more exciting than we can ever imagine. Whatever history tells me, I will report. In some of my videos, such as the burning of the Library of Alexandria, I gave my honest opinion of that. It seems to be that was more of a gradual social and economic decline than it was of one major catastrophic event. So I try to give you what history tells me in my honest opinion. And the Turin Kings list, that is a very good question, and I thought I would just address it today. And this is pretty much all we have of the Turin Kings list as it was pieced back together. And this was written in the 19th dynasty of Egypt, and historians say they were using older documents to transcribe this king's list on, and they say it was based on discoveries made in the 18th dynasty. Now, what sort of discoveries? They're not really too specific. But I find it very interesting that in the middle of the 18th dynasty, Thutmose IV uncovered the Sphinx for the first time in thousands of years. Is that possibly where discoveries were made of ancient lists or kings lists that the Turin list was based on? That is purely speculation, but I think it should be mentioned. Now, one story we have of the discovery, or when this papyrus became in possession of the people and how it ended up in Turin. This was made in 1823 by Bernardino Drovetti, and I just want to read a little bit about how it became fragmented, because it was discovered pretty much intact. And it says, when the papyrus was found by Drovetti either in 1823 or 1824, it was apparently complete, and he put it into a jar which he tied about his waist, mounted his donkey, and proceeded to ride into town. The joggling which the jar got along the path was disastrous. When Drovetti opened it, the extraordinary document had been reduced to mere scraps which had been arranged and rearranged during the past 100 years, but so much had disappeared in dust on that ride on the donkey back that only the barest outline of the original document remains today. And just reading a little further here, I think this is important, starting right here. It says, the damaged state of the papyrus only allows for conjectural reconstructions of the most damaged parts. The order, reign lengths, and even the very existence of many kings would not have been possible to ascertain without the papyrus, as many of them are known only from the Turin Kings list. And I will leave the link for this website below, but here it says the 18th dynasty scribes compiled these sources into a complete kings list. And why did it occur in the 18th dynasty that these ancient documents were all of a sudden available to them? Were they discovered under the Sphinx by Thutmose IV when it was uncovered? I think that is a slight possibility. I'll just say that. Now, one thing I'm going to mention here before jumping over to another website is when this was purchased in the early 1800s, it was purchased in ancient Thebes, present-day Luxor, and that is how it came into possession of Bernardino Drovetti, the French consul general of Egypt, around 1820. Now, jumping over to this website, this is experienceancientegypt.com, and I will leave the link for this below. It says why the Turin Kings list is so special, and they just give you some facts on it. Approximately 1.7 meters long, written during the reign of Ramses II, the great 19th dynasty pharaoh. It said it is the most informative and accurate list and goes back all the way to King Menes, or King Narmer, the very first ruler or pharaoh of the first dynasty. And actually this list goes back further than that. I believe King Menes or Narmer is listed on the third column, and there is a column 1 and a column 2. But, you know, historians that give you the standard model history say that column 1 and column 2 are just myth and legend. And it also states what is specifically stated on the papyrus, the length and the reign of each king in years, month, and days. It notes the names of kings that were omitted from other kings' list. It stretches back to mythic time when gods and mythical kings ruled Egypt, according to the people who bring you history. It groups together kings by location rather than chronology. And it seems to be a main purpose of this Turin Kings list. It was used by pharaohs to prove their royal blood, and royal blood was very important, and that seeped into other legends coming from different times in history. And highlighted here it says it even lists the names of the Hyksos rulers of Egypt. It says the last point is quite exceptional considering how much the Egyptians hated recognizing these foreign kings and wouldn't want to legitimatize them. But to remedy that, the Turin canon doesn't give their names the usual embellishment of Egyptian pharaohs with cartouches around them. They also had an added hieroglyphs pointing out their foreign origins. And who were these Hyksos rulers? Well, they are known by another name to you in another period of history. Let's see what Josephus writes about them based on an earlier Egyptian historian Manetho's writing. It says these foreign invaders here were identified as shepherds, and they were called shepherd kings. The shepherds were subdued and driven out of the most parts of Egypt and shut up in a place named Avaris, measuring 10,000 acres. The shepherds had built a wall surrounding the city which was large and strong in order to keep all their possessions and plunder in a place of strength. It says Thutmose attempted to take the city by force and by siege with 480,000 men surrounding it, but he had despaired of taking the place by siege and concluded a treaty with them that they should leave Egypt and go without any harm to them whenever they wished. After the conclusion of the treaty, they left their families and chattels, not fewer than 240,000 people, and crossed the desert into Syria. Fearing Assyrians who dominated over Asia at the time, they built a city in the country which we now call Judea. It was large enough to contain the great number of men and was called Jerusalem. And people, I made videos about this maybe a year and a half ago, and people kind of doubted those videos, that there was a true Exodus story coming from history. But the foundations of this story, the Hyksos, were based in Avaris, where I just happened to make a video about a discovery last fall, where a giant wall was discovered around Avaris, it is called in Greek. Tanis, this was known by. In the Bible, it is known as the city of Ramses. This is all the same location, and a large ancient wall was discovered there. And that was a fairly big discovery. And here Manetho is writing about it over 2,000 years ago. And the Hyksos went north out of Avaris. They crossed the Reed Sea, which is the true original interpretation of the Bible. It was never the Red Sea. They crossed over the Reed Sea. They were pursued by the Pharaoh and his brother. They raided Jericho, and they set up shop eventually in Jerusalem. This is the story of the Exodus rewritten in the Bible to fit the biblical narrative. Just thought I would point that out, and the fact that the Turin Papyrus gives them credit, but not all the credit they deserve. It's an obvious conflict between the people of Judea at the time and Egypt that still goes on today. And that is the origin of that conflict right there. Just thought I would point that out. And I just wanted to show this. This is where ancient Avaris is, and it was later moved when this branch of the Nile River dried up. But this is the city of Ramses in the Bible. And this is where the Exodus took place from, and to think that they took a 200-mile detour by foot is ridiculous. They crossed over the Reed Sea in the northeastern Nile Delta. This was the route that 250,000 people took when they went up and founded Jerusalem. And it all had to do with the war they were fighting with the southern Egyptians, and they lost that war, and they made an agreement to leave. They made a promise to leave, a covenant, and they inscribed it in stone, and they carried it in a box or an ark with them. When they left Egypt, they carried an ark that held in stone the agreement, the promise, the covenant made with the southern Egyptians. I believe this is where the whole Ark of the Covenant thing comes from. I just wanted to mention that. So my time is running out here. In conclusion, basically, what I'm trying to say is the Turin Papyrus is very interesting. It gives a list of kings that is probably the most complete, and it does list kings that ruled before the First Dynasty. And also on column 1, it does list gods that we are familiar with, such as Horus and Ptah and Thoth, and I believe it says Ptah, or I believe it says Thoth ruled for over 7,000 years. So you really have to wonder what is being said here. Is that just worship of Thoth lasted for 7,000 years? So then you got to ask, who were the people at that time doing the worshiping? So there is evidence that the history of Egypt goes back a lot farther from the First Dynasty, but exactly what the Turin Kings list is telling us is kind of up for speculation. Boy, it would have really helped if we had the complete document before it was destroyed in the journey of Mr. Drovetti. But if you have any thoughts, or if you have studied the Turin Kings list at all and have anything further to add, go ahead and add it in the comments section. Hope you thought this was interesting, and you all have a nice day.